We'll do a bunch of stuff. I love that tune.
Good evening and welcome to Field Talk. I am the Field, also known as Field of Bears, here to remind you that socialism always ends in invasion and genocide. Now tonight we are having another interview with a very interesting bear who's got a very interesting project to talk about. I am of course referring to Big Riggin Bear, who is going to have a very interesting project we'll talk about in just a second here, but the links to his YouTube channel and Twitter are down below in the description area, and you can click on those links at your leisure. So why don't you say hello and tell me what I've missed there, Big Riggin Bear?
Well, I think that I don't think you've missed anything so far tonight. Nice to be with you tonight, Field. And we're trying to get that quiet. Sorry, I'm still scrambling to get devices together here. No, I think you pretty much got it covered. Like we were talking about beforehand, all I use is YouTube and Twitter, so not a whole lot of other links to cover on there.
Although we should look forward to that trucker hat you're promising.
That, oh yeah, there is that. Yeah, I just watched these mug wars going on, and I like coffee, but you guys' fixation with mugs. I mean, I got a little bit of a thick head going on here, so when I get out in the sun, I like to cover up with a hat. And yeah, we'll be looking at, hopefully within the next week or two, the production of the Big Riggin trucker hat. So keep your eye on Facebook, or not Facebook, on Twitter and my YouTube channel for links to be able to pick you up the stylish trucker hat.
Yes, well, and talking about something completely different, because there's no good segue to go from that to your project. Your project, I believe it's called Face to Face with a Bear, and it's an interview series. So why don't we talk about what gave you that idea?
Well, from watching Big Bear stream and through the Unbearables app and all the different chats that I've been involved in, we have such an astounding community, but it's hard to get the word out if, like Big Bear talks about with the networking, and you know, he's got that wonderful carving behind him now, the lighted carving, and all of the different stuff that the Bears are capable of creating, whether it's, you know, handmade projects like that, or the technological things that Bears are capable of. We've got Quarter Bear, who's into programming. We've got tons and tons of musical bears that produce original content and music. We've got all of these different people in the community who are very talented, to say it mildly, but there's really not a way to find out exactly what they do without actually getting into a conversation with them. So what I'm hoping with the show is to be able to highlight these bears and show what they're capable of, whether it be creating something for a Christmas gift or a birthday gift, or whether it be home repairs on a house, or auto mechanic stuff. I mean, it's endless, the amount of talents that the Bears have. So this show is just to highlight that and really get out there and advertise that networking capability that's possible through this type of platform.
Well, you know, how about just off the random chance that someone who's in my audience isn't a fan of Owen Benjamin? Why don't we go ahead and try and clarify what you mean by bears, just in case someone's thinking either literal bears or those fellows down on the Folsom Street Fair with the very hairy chests.
You know, the Armenian crowd is what you're referring to, I think. Yeah, no, okay. So the Unbearables are a community of, the way I describe it to people who aren't bears, it's a community of free thinkers that are open-minded and willing to express themselves. And through the efforts of Owen Benjamin, the comedian, we have gathered together in this group and discussed different topics, from, you know, what's going on Friday night, to the deep political stuff, to in-depth scientific discussions. And the community doesn't really have a membership that, you know, you got to, like some gang membership where you got to be jumped in or something. You just, you know, don't be a troll, be a good person, be a part of this community. And so within that community, then, through those discussions, we've discovered that there's lots of things just beyond discussion that we can share with each other. And again, like I said, this show is going to highlight those things so that they're available for anybody. It's not, we're not trying to be an exclusive group, although we are exclusively, like I said, open-minded free thinkers.
Well, I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. And you say this show is to help people in this community network with each other, and I suppose that you want to sort of expose people who generally wouldn't want to have like a YouTube presence or a Twitter following, who just want to get on with what it is that they do, but you would like to show people in the community what it is that they do.
Exactly. You and I and others like us are actually a fairly rare breed in that we can get on these shows and we can just talk, and we're not afraid to expose ourselves to the different things that ultimately we become exposed to through these programs. So there's a lot of people, and I've actually talked to several bears already, several individuals that are very nervous about even just being interviewed. Well, I want the questions in advance, or I want to know what we're going to talk about so I don't get surprised or look stupid. And it's totally got nothing to do with that. That's not the intent of this. And it's it's not going to happen. There's just too many ways that we can talk to people that the show is going to put a spotlight on those that are everybody from people who are willing to jump behind the camera to those that, you know, are very introverted and but could possibly have a skill that or a talent or a resource that someone might need and is able to share it. And that's what it's all part about being a community, is looking at every individual as an individual, valuable for each individual thing that they have or can do.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And when you're, there are lots of examples of non-adversarial just conversations working online, and I think I think that people really enjoy listening to people explore a topic to the best of their ability, and maybe not in real time, but just at some point. And the good thing about YouTube is that you can listen to that conversation anytime you want, and then you can add your own little piece afterward in the comments section, even if you don't want to jump onto a show yourself and do it.
Exactly, and my show too is there are gonna. I would imagine that a lot of the episodes are going to be live, probably the vast majority of them. However, with the size of the bear community and the location of the people that I'll be interviewing, you know, we've got people in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Finland, Norway, coast to coast across the United States, Mexico. It's obviously not going to be possible with the time restraints to be able to do every single interview live. So a lot of these aren't going to be live anyway. And if the person isn't comfortable being live, we're not going to do a live show. We'll just do a conversation between the two of us that I'll record and post later. You know, it's not something that has to be intimidating or anything like that. Again, like you said, it's this non-adversarial conversation, and that's really what I'm going for. Is not. There's too many of those shows out there already. All you have to do is turn on Fox at any given time, or CNN, or whatever, or a lot of these YouTube shows where you get into these adversarial conversations.
It's a genre called internet blood sports, which the acronym shares a name with something equally pleasant but more medical.
Right. Yeah. I just want to be able to talk to people and be able to share the talents that they have. And, you know, it's something that's going to be just, I think once it really starts rolling, I think it's going to be something that's really useful to people. So I think it's really going to explode once we start getting into some of these, because I'm going to start off with, I'm trying to do some of the, a combination between some of the OG bears that a lot of people already know, or at least know their name, maybe delve a little bit deeper into who they are and what they do, and also some of the very active conversational individuals who I interact with already on a daily or weekly basis anyway, and then move into maybe somebody that you've never heard, maybe somebody that just is part of the community that doesn't even necessarily interact, and I'm working on a couple on Twitter right now that are active on Twitter, but you've never heard of them before. And that's what those are the people that I want to highlight. I want to put a spotlight for, you know, give people their 15 minutes of fame or so, or so to speak, and be able to show everybody that we're all just normal people. We're not so different from each other that we can't really expose this community for what it is.
Well, you mentioned that the community is a bit of a diaspora. And as such, I wonder, is it going to be primarily this kind of format where you got two guys on the same screen but in different parts of the world?
I think to start off with, that's what it's going to be. The goal eventually is to uh, expand out to where it's not even necessarily two guys apart from each other. That interview style where we're sitting across from a table from each other, potentially traveling either me to them or they to me, and doing those sorts of things. Obviously, that's a little further down the line, but also one of the things that I'm imagining is maybe a roundtable type discussion where we might get 3 or 4 or 5 people together and have that long form extended, not just those everybody trying to get in a memorable sentence or two, but actually sit and have a conversation about a topic or a set of topics that, like I said, it's going to be everything I'm going to try and stay away from the really divisive topics, especially for the first while. Stay away from politics, stay away from quote unquote settled sciences that aren't necessarily settled, and talk about things that real people talk about that somebody might be able to glean a small nugget of information or new knowledge out of it.
All right, so yeah, it's a very interesting thing what the internet has allowed us to do. I think we're on opposite ends of the country, and we can still have this kind of a conversation, almost face to face, except we can't see mine due to the camera situation. And I know, but at least
but
I sound okay.
I am looking at this handsome bear on the screen, so that's at least something.
You can get that at redbubble.com/people/REFIELD.
There you go.
Indeed. So, when it comes to the in-person stuff, how do you see that? How do you see that progressing as some kind of a tour?
Potentially, I think it's going to depend on the individual. I think each one is going to be a little bit different. I think some of them are going to be maybe sitting down at like cafe style where we're sitting at a table having coffee. Some of them may be out actually doing something, whether it be working with firearms or working on a car or building a bench for the deck. I think the possibilities for this are so limitless that I don't even think I've realized a fraction of what's possible through this show.
No, you're getting me really pumped up about this. I can't wait to see it. But you're starting with an OG bear. He was a bear before they were bears. Talking, of course, about Nimmer the Wrinkly.
Mr. Wrinkly White Tea himself. I'm really excited about that one, and he was quick to jump on that. We haven't got exactly all the particulars yet, the time or anything like that. I still have some technical issues to work through before we lock that down, but I'm extremely
someone is making accusations about me. A, I'm not a hipster. I don't dress this way ironically. B, my hair isn't frosted. It's naturally blonde. Go sit down, Hex.
Gotta take care of the trolls. Yeah, no, when it comes to Nimmer, I'm really excited about this because it's someone who has a large reach already. So it's going to draw a lot of people into the show, I think, that wouldn't necessarily jump on the stream right off the bat. But quality guests, I think, are going to be the key to the start of this, just to get the excitement level up, to get the people interested. And also with Nimmer, there's going to be very little preparation as far as the interview goes, because being a celebrity of sorts already, I'm sure he's had interviews. He's an excellent speaker. He's comfortable in the public eye. So it's just going to be a good conversation. I don't think it's going to be like any of the other interview shows you've seen in the past, whether it be late night television or daytime television. I think we're just going to have a good time. We're going to have a good conversation and really explore who and what Eric Nimmer is. Nim the Great.
That'll be really interesting because apart from random questions in his chat, I don't think he's ever really talked about himself. So
no, if you watch some of his live streams, he does get a little bit more in depth into who he is, but not really deep. I mean, he'll cover a current events topic or a question that somebody's been bugging him about. But yeah, as far as who Nimmer is, who Eric is, how he got to where he is, and we're brothers in arms anyway. We're both Marines, so we'll have some stuff to talk about that. Maybe give a little insight into the Marine Corps world for people who aren't familiar with the military, and just how he got to where he is today, where he started out from, the whole story.
Yeah, and I think there are tons of stories to be told. Like, for instance, well, yours. Let's start with the name. I guess the burning question that's on everyone's mind is why do you call yourself a Big Riggin Bear?
Well, I've been driving truck for about 10 years now. I've had several different careers throughout my life, and I've settled into this one. And really, once I get into,
are you long haul or local?
Not anymore. I am local. I'm what's called LTL-P&D. It's less than truckload pickup and delivery. And so I am at home every night. I get to see my family every day, or well, if I typically leave early in the morning, so there's a lot of times they're not out of bed yet, and I tend to get back late at night. So there are times when the kids are in bed before I get home, but I'm at least at home in my bed every night. And I go from, I live in north central Minnesota and travel down to the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area every day. And I've got a set route down there and just go to my different customers. I make deliveries on the way down and pickups on the way out, and full in, full out is the goal. And so to get to the name, it's actually kind of a self-deprecating name, believe it or not. A dig in the trucking industry, if somebody is pretty full of themselves or is too hot for their own seat, we call them Johnny Big Rigger, because they think they're way better than they are, and it's kind of a slam. So I just dropped the Johnny and threw on the N, and so we're Big Riggin Bear. Kind of a way to remind myself to stay a little humble on that and not get overly confident. Or actually, one of the reasons I like to remind myself that is a stat that sticks out in my head that I heard and I read in a magazine one time, that the average experience level of a truck driver who rolls over a truck is 12 years of experience. So it's not something that happens to the rookie driver. It's not something that most of the time when you see a truck laying on its side that you assume it's some idiot that didn't know what he was doing, and actually
I'm gonna have to cut that idea right here right now. Is the most common thing that tips a truck over is high winds.
High winds or speed.
It's a really dangerous job.
It can be. It can be a very dangerous job if you don't. But it's like any job with any piece of dangerous equipment. If you don't respect the equipment you're using, the odds that you're going to get hurt with that equipment increase exponentially. So actually, speed is one of the most likely causes of a rollover accident. Wind does tip trucks over. I've had some pretty close calls with wind. But speed for the conditions is typically the biggest reason, and that applies to wind as well. The faster you're going in a high wind situation, the less friction there is to the road, and the more likely it is you're going to get pushed over.
Yeah, so it's just when you're on, anyone who's on the road is experiencing one of the highest risk activities that we engage in our society. and someone whose job it is to be on the road all the time is obviously going to have a higher chance of experiencing a wreck. So people should just, if anyone's thinking that any truck driver who gets in a wreck is just an inexperienced or incompetent driver, should probably just let that idea go away.
There are plenty of those out there, though. Just because you have a commercial driver's license does not make you a truck driver. That's another thing too in our industry. It's important, as with any high risk job, that you keep yourself humble enough to know that nothing is beyond your situation, and it can happen to anybody. But there is a high level of just those Johnny Big Riggers that yesterday I couldn't spell truck driver, today I are one.
Well, you get that in every profession. I had someone almost kill me to death with a forklift once, so.
Yeah, I've been in some close calls on those myself, on them and beside them. I would rather be on them than beside them most times too. It's because, again, you're putting your life into someone else's hands that's operating a high risk piece of equipment.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've been in high risk kind of industries for a lot of your life.
I would say that probably the only I was a short order cook for a while, and that was probably the safest job I've ever been in. I was a framing contractor.
Well, that depends on whether you're working for Koreans or not.
Well, I never did work for Koreans, so I can't speak to that. But I did work for natives. I worked for a casino as a overnight shift supervisor in a kitchen. So I would have to say that that's probably the safest job, the lowest risk job I've ever been in. But I was a framing carpenter building houses. I was a log home contractor for a spell, and now truck driving, and obviously the Marine Corps. I was very blessed when I was in the Marine Corps, though, that I never had to be in any of the situations that a lot of our guys are in right now. I was in from 94 to 98, and it was peacetime the entire time. There were a couple of close calls where we thought we may get involved with something. The unit I was stationed with over in Okinawa did those field exercises over in South Korea, and we were the first unit to carry live ammunition during training exercises since the Korean War. So that was an interesting situation to be in, but that was about as high risk as that got as far as combat related. And I was a comm center operator, so I was in the rear with the gear. So I wasn't worried about losing an arm to a friendly fire mortar round or something. But yeah, I do tend to gravitate towards higher risk jobs, I will say.
Well, the thing I've noticed about people who do difficult or dangerous work is they tend to have a bit of knowledge on how the world operates, but like you say, they recognize the importance of humility. I think that describes you fairly accurate. And
well, thank you. That's what I strive for.
And so, what I'd like to ask about that is, what do you think it is about the dangerous or the difficult sort of manual labor jobs that you've done that gives people that sort of wisdom?
Watching people get hurt seriously. That's what's. I mean, I've fallen off a roof. I've seen people fall off of buildings. I've seen people have appendages seriously damaged from not paying attention. I was at a customer over the road one time that I was there just a few hours after the state patrol and the cleanup crews had all left because someone had gotten squashed in between a trailer and a dock door. As the truck was backing into the dock, they walked behind the trailer and didn't have enough time to get out of the way. So I've seen those, or been really close to seeing some of those situations, especially out on the highway. some of the wrecks that I've witnessed have been just horrific. I've seen everything from motorcycle crashes up to tractor trailers tangling together, and seen them happen. And it really opens your eyes to what the possibilities are, and makes you realize that it's not always in your control. So you better keep as much of what's in your control straight down the wheelhouse, because it's, if you can't be in control of what's in your control and understand what's beyond your control, bad things can happen quickly.
That's a very good way of putting it, actually.
It's the old the serenity prayer that alcoholics say too. You know, that's basically what it boils down to. You know, grant me the I can't even think of what it is now, but
Lord, give me coffee to change the things that I can, and whiskey to accept the things I cannot. Isn't that how it goes?
Something like that. I think the alcoholics have changed the words a little bit, but it's something along that line.
They probably have. I mean,
and the wisdom to know the difference. That's the line in that poem, though, that really stands out to me, is the wisdom to know the difference, and be a strong enough individual to take responsibility and accept responsibility for what's in your control, and a wise enough individual to understand that that doesn't mean that everything is within your control.
Well, and sometimes you really don't know what's in your control, and I think that's a part of where ambition comes into play. And it seems like that you have the ambition to take control of the unknown and make it known.
Well, there is that aspect of it too, I guess, put it that way, that, you know, you do eventually, I mean, you don't automatically know what's not in your control. You do have to explore a little bit and decide, you know, find out sometimes by, you know, burning your finger in the scalding water that, hey, the water's hot. But you also have to have enough gumption to get up and get out of the chair and go check the pot to see if see what the water's doing.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're moving on to do with this project, Face to Face with the Bear.
It's an exploration for sure, and I think that's what makes it so exciting. I think that's why I'm so jazzed about it, and I think that's a big part of it too. I have to remain excited about it. If I'm not excited about it, I'm not going to be able to provide good content. But the fact that the possibilities are there and they're within my reach, that all I have to do is just take that first step. And that's why I started the show Thoughts from the Road, is to get my feet wet. I'm not a very highly technological guy. I don't spend a lot of times on computers. I've never been a gamer. Super Mario Brothers and Contra were the only two games I ever played as a kid, and abandoned those fairly quickly as well. So technology for me is kind of an intimidating thing. That's why I did the Thoughts from the Road, is to see, okay, how much is there to this? How much am I going to be able to do? How much am I going to have to rely on the support of other people for advice and instruction on what the next step is? I mean, I watched like your stream, and you're able to throw the chat up or bring in articles or stuff. I haven't the first clue on how to do any of that stuff. So it's going to be a learning experience and a crash course over the next couple of months here to be able to really dive in and get these things worked out. But because of what the potential for this show is, the amount that can be shared, and the idea that we all have something to offer, because I think that's probably part of one of my concerns for society right now, is so many people, not necessarily even heavily depressed people or anything, but just the average Joe can get discouraged from time to time because they don't feel like they don't have a, they don't have a something to contribute. And part of what makes me is understanding that not only do I have things to contribute, but I have to contribute them or they're not worth anything. You know, storing money in a mattress is a way to keep your money safe and away from the reach of the bank or the federal government. But if you never spend it, what value does it have?
Well, I could get into the economic arguments on saving versus spending, but I think that's beside the point.
It was a metaphor. It wasn't an actual economic conversation starter there either. So, it was more of a metaphor for hidden or unused talents.
Well, yeah, there's actually this old timey storyteller. He's in a book. You might have heard of him, called Jesus. He is like this story about like gold coins called talents, and one dude buried them, got in trouble for it. Might have heard of it. It's somewhat famous.
Yeah, kind of I think I've heard. I think I know where you're going with this. I'm not exactly sure, but I think I might have heard this one once or twice in Sunday school.
Yeah, it's I think that's where you were trying to go with the mattress analogy.
Exactly. It's the three men that the landowner sent out with money to do what they could with, and yeah, the one that buried it, the landowner wasn't very happy about it, and that's kind of where you could see the greater society right now. We're not happy as a society with all the buried talents that we have. If we harken back to the greatest generation or even before that, and you look at how hard they worked and how openly they shared their talents with others, and today we've gotten so far away from, with as connected as we are, we're as disconnected as we've ever been. And I think
speaking of connectivity, do you think there's a generational disconnect that's going on here?
I think there's probably a bigger one than I have conversations with a friend of mine about this from time to time, how every generation says, oh, those darn kids, or man, old people are weird. But I think the divide, the schism between generations right now is probably bigger than it's been. But I don't think it's unbridgeable. I just think there's nobody making an attempt to bridge them. I shouldn't say nobody, but there's fewer people now making attempts to bridge those schisms than there has been in past. And I think a lot of that actually has to do with technology. We get in our own little bubble and we stare at I call them my blue-faced kids all the time, because we spend so much time staring at the screen, we fail to realize that there's other people, even just within our own household, that we can interact with, let alone the greater community or beyond. So it's kind of a funny catch-22 here that I'm using this technology to undo what I'm saying the technology is doing, but you got to start somewhere. And again, that's where the hope for this show is too, is that eventually
it's the same as any kind of entertainment. You got to moderate it.
Right. Exactly.
If your kids are blue-faced all the time, it's kind of your job to fix that if you can, right?
Right. Well, that's why they know as soon as I call them the blue-faced kids, that's when the tablets get shut off. Because I think that I tell them if they stare at that screen too long, they're going to turn into Smurfs. That blue won't go away. So it's again, in moderation. It's being able to determine where your own limits are, where your own boundaries are, and what's healthy and what's good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that connecting across space and time with ideas and people is all well and good. But you've also got to think about the people who are right with you. And
absolutely.
It sounds like you're a family man, so.
Oh, yes. That is what drives me forward, is the idea of the house that I have here and the home that we make it, and everything else comes behind that. So it's, one of my biggest concerns in life is whether or not I'm going to be able to prepare my kids for their adulthood. And so I constantly work at that. That is one of my biggest, like Big Drum Bear was talking about the other day, what are your fears? That would be one of my biggest fears, is whether or not I'd be able to prepare them for their adulthood. And I think it's good to have those fears, because then and be conscious of them, because then that's what drives you to work on that.
And the tiger's chasing you, and you're chasing after something tasty, I guess.
Exactly.
Like,
yep.
For those of everyone who've been following my channel for some time, you'll know that everything for me is always a story, and your story, we got your project, the story, you got the big Riggin part of your story, and now we're getting into the unwritten chapters, I guess, with the future and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to leave behind, and or not necessarily leave behind, but send forward, I think is a better way of looking at it, because I don't think you're on death's door quite yet.
And even when I am, I think that's a better way to look at it. It's a more driven statement to say that you're looking at what you're going to send forward than what you're going to leave behind. Because once you've left it behind, it's gone. I was just explaining to my son the other day. Actually today, we ate at the Chinese restaurant, and he got his fortune cookie, and it said, work for what you can today, because tomorrow is today's yesterday. So, and he didn't understand that. So I had to explain to him that, today is a moment that if you don't do what's available to do in this moment, that moment's gone. And once it's gone, you don't get it back. So you always have to work forward instead of, you have to be aware of what's happened in the past. That's what makes us wise. But you also have to be living for tomorrow, because you can't live in the past. It's already gone. It's already written. It's already set in stone. There's nothing to be done to change that.
Yeah. And what it looks like you are attempting to send forward are stories and connections that will help guide people, maybe your kids, maybe someone else's kids, to making their lives better.
I think it's more than just that, though. That might be just a wonderful side effect of the show. I'm actually, one of the biggest things I'm the most excited about with the show is to be able to, in real time, share, again, that networking aspect. To be able to share, obviously, it'll work into the future too, but if I've got something I'm trying to do, and Big Riggin Bear is interviewing me, and I don't know how to do it, it'll be a platform to ask there too, so that we can maybe get answers to those type of questions, as well as sharing with someone else who already has a question what this person that is being interviewed at that moment has to offer for that, or maybe someone in an upcoming stream or a previous stream, and be able to solve real world issues that are so day to day and so not covered. Like I said, we'll be able to, I'm sure some of the streams will be about carpentry and construction. Some of the streams will be about mechanics and, the things that don't be afraid to tackle on your own car, from weapons to education to resources, that you may have or be looking for. I'm looking at it more from that aspect. Again, the take care of today thing, um, because yesterday's gone and tomorrow isn't promised.
Yeah, that's very true. And and on that living in today, the the thing, make sure that you do seize the day, but also don't go YOLO stupid. I guess is where I would
Right.
caution that is carpe diem is definitely the superior what would you call that exclamation to YOLO, which is inferior in every way, just like the ugly mug.
I was wondering when that was coming.
Well, I noticed that you are forced to drink from a substandard mug, and I didn't want to make you feel bad about it.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm still waiting. The mail service, there must be something wrong. Somebody got a hold of that handsome mug in the mail service and has decided that they got to hold it for an extra little while longer. I was hoping it'd be here by today, but I just haven't seen it in the mailbox yet.
Wow, those package handlers, you gotta watch them.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Excuse me.
Mostly because they didn't understand what they were signing up for.
Or who it was going to. I mean, did they not realize it was for me? I mean, it's to improve my life.
Well, everyone's life is improved with a handsome mug, or T-shirt, or notebook, or sticker.
Exactly. I mean, how dare you show your face in public without the handsome T-shirt?
Oh, B West actually suggests that you get Coder on as soon as you can because he's developing a course for homeschoolers to help their kids learn how to code. So that's something to file in your back pocket, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, throw a link up in the what is B West mod?
Yes, I'm pretty sure B West is a mod.
Okay, if not, I bump into B West all over the place. I can get a link from him that way too. So, but it'd definitely be worth sharing with other people as well. My kids currently go through the public school system, but homeschooling would be a phenomenal option if we could work that in. I don't see it happening anytime in the really near future, but
yeah, well, my mom didn't see homeschooling in the near future, but when my sister was being tormented by her teacher and there was no other solution, she made it possible. So it really just depends on your situation.
With so many things, I mean, situational necessities can bring out some pretty unheard of results. Things that you would have never dreamed of being able to do, you're now doing on a daily basis because of a particular situation.
Yeah, and I did notice we're almost out of time, but I noticed that someone in the chat, I don't remember who it was asking what kind of truck you have.
I drive right now. I'm a company driver, so I drive what they tell me to drive. But I have a Kenworth T800 day cab with the cab extension, dual exhaust, got a Cummins ISM 335. So anybody that's really technical and a gearhead can figure most of that out. I'm not sure what gears I have in the rear end, but no, it's a pretty comfortable ride. And if you check out my stream thoughts from the road, you'll get a pretty good look at the interior of it. I do have that show is filmed most of the time from the inside of my truck while driving down the highway. So makes for an interesting stream as well.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. Sorry, I just have a little bit of trouble articulating at the precise moment.
Field of Bears, the cat got your tongue?
Oh, something like that. Oh, actually, I was going to ask, just like I did with Big Drum Bear, is what is it like pursuing what you want to do with the streams and with your career, doing that at the same time as well as being, from all appearances, a very involved father.
Okay, so what is it like? What? I missed the
You
one word in there that was crucial to the question.
pursuing what you want to do with the streams, your goals with that, as well as your career, and being a very involved father.
It it's going to be an adjustment. I will say that there is. It's about priorities and not only priorities that you want to do, but priorities that you need to do as well. And like I said, obviously the family always comes first in that, and in my situation. But the things you enjoy to do, you always end up making time for them. And I really enjoy doing this. I'm the kind of guy who likes to talk, so this comes natural, and being able to do the things you want to do, you always find time to make room for those.
Yeah, and that's a really great thing to leave us with. It's now 6:51. I am slightly starving to death because I haven't eaten in like 2.5 hours.
And as small as you are, as thin as you are, I mean, you got to keep the food moving in, or you'll just vanish into nothing.
Well, yes, it's true. Everyone says they're jealous of my metabolism, but they don't understand how much I need to eat to not die.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, buddy. It's been a very enjoyable conversation, and just a reminder to everybody: make sure you follow me on
Later, your
Twitter.
coffee will taste so handsome that you will never think of ordaining yourself ever again.
Thanks, Steve.
So I'm going to go ahead and let you go, and then I'm going to close out the show.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Peace, everybody. Remember, keep the dirty side down.
Thanks for coming, and have a great evening.
You
Oops. There we go. Okay, everyone. That was Big Riggin Bear. Links to his stuff down in the description below. He's a very interesting dude. His channel's pretty great. He's got pretty good taste in mugs. I mean, he did buy the ugly mug, but that was only because he didn't know the handsome mug existed yet. Everyone who's aware of the handsome mug knows of its superiority, and of course goes for that instead of the ugly mug, unless they happen to be rolling in the dough and buy both. And the link to the Field of Bears handsome mug is down in the description below, labeled mug. It is beneath the two links that I suggest you follow. Go and follow Big Rick and Bear on Twitter. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel. It is a very good channel. Although you probably should have a more stout heart than the West, who gets frightened in streams and drives. And if you like to sow the field, please go to paypal.me/fieldtalk. Link in the description below. If you enjoyed this chat with Big Rick and Bear, please hit the like button. And if you would like to see more, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell if you want the subscription to mean anything. Oh, and follow me on Gab, Minds, and Facebook page, and follow who at not field or field underscore not. Well, the link is in the description is below. Seeing as how I obviously don't know the Twitter handle, that means it is definitely not me, but in fact a fan of mine who is not me. But it seems to be an okay Twitter account, OK Fan. But I would like you guys to keep an eye on that guy and report to me if he goes insane. And as always, have a great evening, and never forget that socialism always ends in starvation.